I'm Malcolm Van Delst, and this is an excerpt from Do the Wrong Thing, a book series or extra long novel that opens with a woman trying to kill herself. She says, "I don't know why I tried to do this," and by way of explanation, tells her life story. We are about 100 pages into book 3. The working title is Shiny, Pretty, Gothic. Last week in Do the Wrong Thing, Ava realized she had an eating disorder and that her roommate's closet full of marijuana plants was the tip of a drug-dealing iceberg, and she spent Christmas alone. This chapter is now called Dead Soul Landscape Again, which was the original title. Drifting again, back on welfare again, a smattering of art modeling. You might think that knowing you had an addiction would make it easy to stop, but it doesn't. I can't keep myself from cramming all those tomatoes, bread, chocolate chip cookies, rice, margarine, anything. Swallowing until my stomach is about to burst, then rushing to the bathroom for relief. What? Is it the secret I like? Something I do for me and me only? My special place / loving of me? I can't get fat. Nobody, not even other women, wants a fat girl. I'll return to my self-hatred afterwards, but for a few minutes, my dead soul can't choke me. A couple weeks into February, we're at a party across the street, a few buildings down. Neil met our neighbors. It's strange that he meets new people so easily. When I'm around, he barely speaks. I look around. Jeans and t-shirts, no cool outfits, cool hair or cool makeup. Brown furniture, off-white walls, a Beatles poster. Really? No one looks interesting. Ugh, how far I've fallen from the fantastique downtown days. "Drum," I exclaimed to a scruffy-looking guy with an oversized plaid shirt and 2 large jeans. He smiles and narrows his eyes, but little sparks ignite in them. "Always," he says. "It allows me to precisely manage my tobacco intake." He hesitates, lifting his rollie so that it's in front of his face, and examines it. "And none of the extra chemicals Mr. Phillip puts into his bourgeois product." I laugh and pull out my own pouch of drum. "Cheers," he says, grabbing his Labatt 50 from the kitchen counter. "Cheers," I say as we clink beers. 2 things in common. Drum and Labatt 50, proud beer of the working class. I quickly check what other people at this party are drinking. Yep, Labatt Blue, insipid beer of the desperate to move up a notch, and a smattering of the acceptable, though no 50, Molson export. "My name's Damien," he says, "and you are Ava." "Most pleased to meet you," he smiles. We chat. He's from Concord. He's been living in Release for half a year, barely knows one of the girls who lives in this apartment. He met her at a reading night he organizes. A what? A reading night. You know, people bring their poetry and short stories or whatever, their diary entries, he laughs, and read them to whoever shows up. "Oh, wow," I say, lifting myself up onto the kitchen counter. I feel reckless beside Damien, like we're so much better than everyone else at this party. I can be impolite. "I write," I say. "You do?" Damien leans back against the counter beside me. He cocks his head to the side and glances over. What do you write?" "Well, I wrote a short story several months ago about a woman in an insane asylum and her daughter who wants to be a writer." Cool, he says. "Can I read it?" "You want to read it?" He nods. "Sure," I say, heart pounding. I haven't showed it to anyone. Hell, I haven't mentioned it to anyone. I'm not sure I can. "I'm starting a literary magazine. I'm looking for material." "What? This can't be happening." I nod and look down at my feet, letting my hair hide my face. "I'd love for you to read it," I say, holding tight to the counter, feeling dizzy. "Hey, why don't you come to my reading night next Wednesday? You can bring your story with you." I nod without looking up. What have I gotten myself into? I edit furiously, penning in corrections until I can't read anything. Typing, whiting out, over typing, penning in more corrections, retyping. And it's Wednesday and I'm out of time. A magazine? A literary magazine? Damien will say no, thanks, but this isn't what I'm looking for. I bring white walls to a coffee shop a few blocks from my apartment. Please don't let the coffee shop guy read it. Damien's reading night, Speak, takes place at a bar or a cafe as shabby looking as he is, a few blocks from Fantastique towards the seedier part of downtown. I climb up a long staircase wet with slush, which opens to a large wooden floored room full of plants and mismatched furniture, high ceilings. A cafe counter with the usual covered plates of bagels, cinnamon buns, and cookies sits off to the left. Beside it, a fridge full of bottled drinks. I notice that people have beers. This isn't only a cafe. There's a makeshift stage with a mic stand to the right of the food counter. Damien waves from a table and gets up. Hello, he says. I wasn't sure you'd come. I smile nervously. Would you like a beer? Sure, I say, I'll get it. I head to the counter before he can insist, as guys do who I'm buying for me. When I approach Damien's group, he gets up again. Let's sit down over here, he says, motioning to a table away from everyone else. We sit and I pull out my papers. Here it is, I say. Cool, cool. As Damien reads, I take note of the people here. A mix of types I hang out with now and types from Emmett's crowd, if Emmett's crowd were poorer. These people have the same dyed hair and black clothing, but the roots show on their mops and their jeans are faded and ripped. The boys have stubble and the girls wear less makeup. The girls, I notice, are loud and extravagant. Well, not all of them, maybe only one. I love this, says Damien. Oh my God. My heart stops. I very much like to include it in the first edition of Desolation, he smiles. My eyes go round, I grab my beer and exhale and say, wow. Damien introduces me to his friends. Jack is a rakish tall blonde. Val, with frizzy brown hair and a big nose, barely smiles and talks to everyone at the table like he's the leader of this little group, but ignores me. Maddie, with dyed blonde hair, is the loud girl I noticed when I walked in. She has a beautiful voice when she talks softly in an open, accepting manner. Delilah is the most conventional looking, tiny, fine-featured, like a porcelain doll with thick auburn hair. She's a visual artist, a painter. Val, Maddie, Delilah, and Damien are roommates. All of them, Jack included, went to the same alternative high school that Damien went to in Concord. I feel the awe of celebrity for every person who gets up and reads. Jack performs a poem about a girl with hollow eyes and I think a drug addiction, though maybe she's just lost. I mean, like lost in some unnamed city, geographically lost. Others read stories and poems about being broke out of cigarettes or having no furniture or heat. Wow, oh wow, and holy shit. I'm not only in the presence of real artists and writers, but genius. Damien invites me to his apartment, way east of anywhere I've ever been in Release, in a rundown neighborhood near docks and a massive industrial bridge. Upon entering his place, I smell cigarettes, stale beer, and I suppose winter boots. It's not sweaty feet, though that's probably the origin of the plasticky, acrid odor that accosts me, forcing me to breathe less vigorously. The smell, by the way, fills every foyer where coats hang off hooks looped with scarves and a pile of footwear sits below. It mixes with the particular odors of the particular home, residents' body odor, their food and activities. In this apartment, there's a slight smell of paint. The defining feature of Damien's home, along with its scent and general run-downedness, is that every room is painted entirely one faded, muddy color, floor included. Pale orange-red tints the entrance and hallway, with the paint on the floor wearing off where people walk, revealing discolored wooden slats, wider and softer than normal hardwood. Fadish green teal hides the cracks and bulges of the kitchen walls, cupboards, and spots on the floor where the linoleum is gone. Val lazes in a wooden fold-out chair, with his legs on the kitchen table, smoking and reading a newspaper. He nods an unsmiling hi when he sees me. Salmon pink coats the bathroom, which we pass on the way to Damien's room, and dull robin's egg blue, a shade or two off, slightly towards mint, attempts to spruce up Damien's personal space. If I had to guess, I'd say someone long before Damien and his friends bought discards of cheap paint and colors that didn't sell well and tried to mask the apartment's decrepitude. Damien and I sit on his mattress, the only furniture in his room, my back against one wall and his against another. We drink cinquants, smoke, and he shows me mock-ups of Desolation. That's how he spends his days, writing and mocking up Desolation. Well, I wouldn't want to live in Damien's apartment. I love visiting. He and his friends are realer to me than my lost in the past hippie ones. They're from Concord, the biggest city in the country. They're glamorous, urban, and gritty. Damien lays out his magazine on standard 8.5 by 11, folded in half. After typing out the stories and poems, he shrinks them to copy center, then cuts and pastes them onto another. He's printing my story in 2 columns with a picture of a church Madonna exactoed from a library book at the top. The poem, story, or whatever it is that Jack read at Speak is after mine. Jack is definitely destined for fame. He's confident and, as I said, rakish, like Lord Byron. I can't believe my work is on the same page as his. The front cover of Desolation has a drawing of a large, abandoned-looking apartment block done by another of Damien's high school friends. On the back, another drawing by the same guy, this one a scratchy depiction of Jesus on a cross reaching down to some out-of-frame individual, handing that person an Easter egg. Damien thinks his friend's work is the best he's ever seen and wonders how and when he'll be discovered. I believe Damien because he's the publisher of this soon-to-be lauded literary magazine. But if Damien didn't tell me what Jesus was holding in that picture, I'm not even sure I'd register that his hand was reaching down, away from the cross, let alone holding anything. The image is all dark, overcrossed lines, as if the guy who drew it were trying to scratch it out as he composed. Damien and I take a break, walk up through the kitchen and out onto the sagging patio. We look out at rows of old houses that give way to squat, sad-looking apartment buildings like the one we're in, that give way to industrial buildings, an 8-lane highway, and finally, the black water containing cargo ships and tugboats. The bridge rises up to the left like a metal monster in a Japanese horror movie. Cars and Mack trucks line up to get on it, inching forward until they take off as they enter. From the slimy wood we stand on to this rusty, flaking limb, dark on top with rounded fingers of wet reaching down its trusses, everything is dank, old, and barely holding it together. Stunning.